What do you do when somebody buys a giant Sub-Zero refrigerator which requires moving an 18-inch wide cabinet but then leaves a 7-inch gap? You turn your old 18-inch cabinet into a 7-inch wine rack, of course. Let's get started. This is the old 18-inch wide cabinet that had to come out to make way for the 48-inch wide Sub-Zero fridge and freezer. We need to turn this into a smaller cabinet using only the wood from this cabinet and another that we removed to fit the Sub-Zero in. The whole reason for this is that these are custom-made cabinets that will never be able to match, again, properly with new wood, so the challenge was to come up with a design that uses only existing cabinet wood. The first step is to cut this 18-inch cabinet down to 7 inches. Lots of measuring and a tape line ensure we do this right. One mistake here could lead to disaster. So we add guide tape to the bottom, top, and back. Then we use a jigsaw to cut right on the tape line. I thought about running the back through my table saw, but I'd have to use the jigsaw for tops and bottoms anyhow, so I just did it all with that. A circular saw would work well here too. The back is done, now for the top and bottom. And there we go, it's cut in half. No going back now. Next, we get rid of the middle support as we won't be using it. This oscillating tool from DeWalt makes quick work of things and cuts right through the wood and rubbery glue that they used here. Alright, we have it all cut open and ready to keep going. A quick test mock-up so you can see what we're going for here. It would be too narrow to use as a normal cabinet, which is why we went for a wine rack instead. I then set up the miter saw to make accurate 4-inch long 1x2s with a clamped down stop block. I'll use the existing cabinet wood to make these. Note that the stop block can cause the cut piece to catch in the blade once it's cut, so power through the cut, then keep the blade down while you release the power and let it spin down. A quick mock-up of the 4-inch 1x2s. These will hold dowels that will hold the wine bottles later. Now this is overkill for most, but when you have a laser engraver you tend to use it. So we're using it to engrave the 1x2s, which we will then drill out for the dowels. Why go to this much trouble? Accuracy. This literally lasers in a drill template in the same exact spot on every 1x2, making drilling more accurate, because we can't afford to make mistakes because we have no extra wood here. Here's how they come out of the laser. Now I line my 1/2-inch drill bit up with that center mark and make perfect drill holes that go in about 1/4 of an inch. We apply some glue to the dowels and pop them in place. This gives you a rough idea how they'll be installed into the cabinet later. Using some blue tape, we create a storyboard to get our spacing just right. All of the wine shelves are glued and ready to go. We then made a drill jig using an extra dowel support piece and a 3/4 inch thick piece of scrap to get the exact height right. Now we can use this to drill the dowel holes in the back of the cabinet. It's easy and repeatable. So, well, let's keep repeating this all the way down. I'm cleaning out the holes as well as some of the dowels fit a little too tight. Now we're ready to install each wine shelf. We apply some glue and use a 90-degree miter clamp to make sure everything is perfect. Then I pop in some small Spax brand screws in there. Now these dowels that stick out the back won't be seen, but they might hit the wall when installed, so we use the Japanese pull saw to flush cut them easily. Now, some of the shelves are screwed in because those screw holes will be covered by a lower cabinet, but some would show a screw on one side, so we'll rely on just glue for a few of those, hence the clamps. Next up, we need to narrow the base of the cabinet. It's just an 18-inch wide plywood box, so I cut 11 inches out of the middle and put it back together. You won't see this, it's just to raise it off the floor for the toe kick area. Now it's time to bring the two large pieces together. Best to have extra hands for this. And we can go ahead and time-lapse this to speed things up. It's just a matter of putting glue on all of the wood-to-wood contact areas, popping the two pieces together, then clamping, screwing, and firing in a few brad nails as needed. Here it is, all glued up and drying. The right side of the cabinet is up here, so all of those screw holes will be covered by the fridge on the right side of the wine rack. While the rack dries, we're going to reuse the crown molding. A few cuts to bring it down to size, some scrap wood to give it some strength, and some glue and screws to make it solid. And here's how the crown will look on top of the wine rack. The next day we installed it, and then realized we'd made a mistake. Remember those screw holes on the left side? Well, the lower holes were covered by the cabinet on the left as planned, but for whatever reason we forgot that the upper cabinet isn't as deep so those holes are actually going to show. To fix this, we just cut a super thin strip of wood from a piece we still had and used it as a trim piece. We glued and clamped it on. And here's the final result with some sparkling test samples. We're very happy with it. There just wasn't much we could do with a 7-inch wide gap, and we had so little usable wood that matched the existing cabinets, so not a lot of options there. But overall, I really think that this turned out well. Looks like it belongs, and that's all we really wanted. I'd love to know what your thoughts are in the comments, and I'd really like to know what you would have done in that space instead.